Welcome to the Kaskade region, filled to the brim with Pokemon and Pokemon OCs I call Lockemon. We've gone over plenty of them so far, and even went over the gym leaders, the Elite Four, and the origins of the evil organization, and throughout all of these videos, I occasionally said, we'll go over that in the region video, or something along those lines. So that's this. We're going to go over this amazing map that I commissioned this amazing artist to paint up, and cover some of the inspirations for the locations found here. And here's the overall context you'll need for the umpteenth time. The Kaskade region is based on the American Pacific Northwest, where I live. If you take Oregon and Washington, overlay them on top of each other, and bring in some bordering elements from Idaho, California, and British Columbia, you get the Kaskade region, which gets its name from the real-world Kaskade Mountain range. Really, you could also just describe this region as if you compressed the Kaskade Mountain range and all of the land around it into one rectangle. You'd get this region. Also, check this out. It's the beta map that I made with Incarnate in Photoshop. And here's the alpha version that I just drew up in Photoshop. Fun times! So I guess we'll just start in the starting town and the surrounding area and sorta just go from there.
Super special announcement!
Our next video is extra important. We've been working on a secret fan-requested thing for the last 10 months or so, and the next video is the announcement video for it, so please make sure you're subscribed and check it out when it drops. The starting town is Shakeland, based mainly on Ashland, Oregon. Its name mixes Ashland with the word shaky, as it symbolizes shaky beginnings in the plot and symbolism and all that, and also earthquakes. There's lots of earthquakes. The Pacific Northwest is on the Ring of Fire, so of course, earthquakes. Rather than just a tiny town with some houses and the professor's lab, this town has a personality of its own. It's way into stage plays, just like the real Ashland, Oregon, with their plethora of theaters and one of the biggest Shakespeare festivals. So of course you gotta find Spectoul and Opaquespiel here. Directly to the south, you'll find Koya Forest, based on the redwoods populated by redwood sequoia trees, hence the name. I do like the idea of the starting area being near an endgame area. It gives a feeling of ending a cycle and all. That's why several Pokemon games already do it. Think the original Pokemon League or the Forest in Sword and Shield. The Koya Forest is home to many Pokemon. Kaskadian Tropius, Kaskadian Abomasnow. Ananots are everywhere when you first visit. And this forest is studied intensely by Professor Fur, the professor who lives in the starting town, and who studies the strange seasonal effects the region is known for. Those effects being that each quadrant of the region is experiencing its own season with the migration of the box legendaries. However, this particular forest is special in that it seems to always be locked in autumn, and yet the plants are still somehow able to survive, and long enough to grow into the largest trees on Earth even. The big road just beside these woods and the starting town is based on I-5, the main interstate freeway in the Pacific Northwest. And on the other side, there are several beaches down the cliff sides, notable ones being based on Tidal Beach and Agate Beach. The river flowing through the starter town is based on the Willamette River, and as you travel through a little wooded area, you get to a much bigger river, this one based on the Columbia River, which is the river that acts as most of the Oregon-Washington border. It passes right on the edge of Portland, but in this case, it's passing right over the edge of Chapanook City, which is based mainly on Salem, Oregon, the capital. It's also known as the Cherry City, as it has a load of cherry trees in it. In fact, it's a USA Tree City, which just means that it has a lot of trees per capita, and has several pro-tree policies. So here, Chapanook City is way into its cherry trees. Oh, and the name. It combines Chinook, the native people from along the Columbian River, and also the name of the salmon that live in it. And also, it's the mountain wind that brings the seasons. Chinook is a lot of things. And you know what wind, especially cold wind, does to your skin? It chaps it in patches. You ever go through a rough patch in your life? Maybe even caused by your friends? Your chaps? Is that stupid? No? Good. Well, Salem's population has exploded in the last few decades as lots of people are moving in to commute up to Portland. And that's a big part of Chapanook City. The I-5 bridge is currently under construction as they are expanding it. A lot of the city is expanding, actually. The gym is under construction too, hence the gym leader. But not only are people moving here from everywhere, but also from Port Alki, which is the Portland, Seattle, Vancouver equivalent. It's all three combined. But Port Alki is getting too expensive to live in. again, reflecting a real-world issue. And I've said in previous videos that immigration and emigration of people moving on places, changing the world and all that, it's a big theme of this game overall. And this is the first mention of it. Talking to people around town is what gets all this info across. And this is also where you would first directly interact with amaze-all, the supposed evil organization of the game. Their delivery infrastructure is everywhere, and new amaze-all shops, and warehouses, and living houses are all being built. And with all that construction, I guess you gotta go the other way. So here's the first wild area. Now, if this dream concept were to ever become an actual game, there would of course be a lot more detail in the wild area. More landmarks and interesting bits here and there, but for the sake of this, I just wanted like a bunch of trees. It's a forest-based wild area. Some parts denser than others. There would probably be some streams and dens and foggy passageways and rocks and stuff, but deets schmeets. And of course, this whole wild area is based on the forested areas in Oregon to the west of the Kaskade Mountain range, which are gorgeous. And there is also, of course, a little haunted mansion cabin thing all alone in the woods. Gotta have that. Oregon has a ton of these as tourist attractions, likely because of all of the theater nerds who go to Ashland University. There would also likely be an entrance here to the Center Mountain area around here, though closed off at first. And there'd also be an entrance to a dungeony area based on Silver Falls, which again, are gorgeous. And this here, it's Crater Lake, with its Wizard Island in the middle. In this case, we put a literal wizard's tower on the island. And also in Cascade, they call these the Solo Falls, which means wander to in Gnoggin. All around these falls, you can find magically inspired Pokemon like Hatterene, Yanmage, Blue Mage, and you know. But then, right here, there's a teeny tiny town, Solo Town. You ever find yourself just meandering or wandering through life? Maybe you gotta go and do some soul searching on your own, solo. It'll do you some good. And a camping trip may be a great way to do that. That's what a lot of the folks in this area talk about. The majority of them are visitors. At any given time, there are significantly more campers than locals. They're trying to get away from all of the hustle and bustle of the city, which is incredibly common. The Pacific Northwest is a camping hotspot, a camping paradise even. So realistically, this town really is just a small hub with lots of tents and cabins all over, but it has a gym run by a park ranger who, along with plenty of the campers, talk about the creepy, spiritually negative part of the woods, as well as the positively spiritual-powered mountain right across the river. Spectoul Mountain, a mountain teeming with spiritual energy, perfect for being introspective and doing some soul searching. There are infinity energized crystals all over and inside of it, which is what gives it its power. And some say that they see spectral beings floating around it from a distance, but nothing has been confirmed. This mountain is based on Mount Shasta, a truly beautiful mountain in Northern California that I grew up right next to. And let me tell you, people believe some crazy things about this mountain, including that the crystals found inside of its crystal caverns are magical, and that the mountain contains a portal to a higher plane of existence, and aliens come here through it. It's been described as a center of mystical, paranormal, and metaphysical activity like no other in America. The mountain was worshipped for millennia by the Wintu, Hopi, and others, and today it's believed to be one of the world's few power spots. A power spot being a place where spiritual vortexes come down to heal the Earth's soul. People from all over the world come here on the equinox and during eclipses for it, hoping to travel through the portal just as the Lemurians, a pre-Atlantean civilization, did so long ago. So, some things are going to happen here. You can, of course, find Carbink, but also Drozabel, Kaskadian Excadrill, and maybe even Kaskadian Diance, based on the Lemurians themselves, and guardian of the power of this mountain. But moving on, moving through the mountain, you reach Wild Area 2. Same deal as the last one. If this were a real actual game, we'd put a lot more details here, but this is all just to get the idea across. It's a dirty desert, with a sandy desert on top, both to represent the dirty, rocky eastern deserts east of the Kaskade Mountain range, as well as the dunes that are found in various places scattered around the Pacific Northwest. And this area is where a lot of the, nuts live. Bunker boys and all. So of course the Question line is found here. as is Desiree. And down here in the corner, there is a history museum where you can learn of the ancient people and Pokemon here. And it's in front of a great big hole in the ground, which happens to be a geyser. There are a lot of geysers in this part of the world. Oregon has one of the few continually blowing ones, and Idaho has the only captive one. It's in Soda Springs, Idaho, which is a part of the inspiration for Bent Town, which is a combination of Soda Springs and Bend, Oregon. And I guess a little bit of Reno, Nevada? There's a casino here, but I suppose there are also casinos in Oregon too. Well, there's also a big fountain, which features bubbly water. It's the reason Soda Springs, Idaho is called Soda Springs. This town is very old, and a lot of people recently left, heading for Port Alki, Chapanook, and abroad. There's not much left for them here in the desert, especially not jobs. But thankfully, the gym leader slash casino owner slash mayor slash entrepreneur struck a deal with amaze-all, and now there's more jobs. Amaze-all warehouses and factories, they produce a lot of glass. And sure, he may not like working for them, but sometimes you do have to bend your morals a bit, or get bent yourself. Just to the north is the Obsidian Flow, based on the Obsidian Flow. It's a ton of obsidian that flowed from a volcano. I bet you can find some obsidius here. Also, like the big forest in the last area, there's some sort of strange energy here, locking this part of the region in eternal summer, making it the hottest part of the region, and people are often warned to stay away. Just north of it is a big hydroelectric dam. This part of the world actually has a load of dams. Nearly half of Oregon's and more than 2/3 of Washington's electricity comes from them. And this area also has some of the biggest dams: Shasta, Oroville, Grand Coulee, and loads of small ones. But back to the desert, the oasis here is just a landmark. But then over here we have an Old West ghost town, once a gold mining town. One of the main reasons people migrated over here, via the Oregon Trail and other means, was the gold rush. So there's lots of gold in lots of mines. And when the mine dried up, why stay at the town at all? So there are actually quite a few ghost towns or near ghost towns in this part of the world. I took field trips to some as a kid. They were neat. And way out here by the river is a lone gym. The gym leader too is a bit of a loner, but he helps people get across the river, which still doesn't have a bridge despite a huge demand for one. The funding just keeps going to Port Alki instead. This reflects a local political issue that I could talk years about. Salem, Oregon has been asking for a new bridge for years. That's all it would take to alleviate the hour-long traffic, turning it into about 20 minutes instead. The current bridge is a massive bottleneck. The only other bridge is like 20 miles away, but the money keeps going to Portland. Anyway. He helps you get across to the third area, across this river canyon, which is based on Hell's Canyon, if you turned it 90 degrees. Normally this canyon is the border between Oregon and Idaho, with a little bit of Idaho and Washington, but I changed that. And also, fun fact, Hell's Canyon is actually quite a bit deeper than the Grand Canyon. It's just not as well known since it's so far from LA. Now, this third quadrant is not a wild area. It's just a bunch of routes. This area is all ranches and farms, and I mean farms everywhere. Oregon and California are agricultural powerhouses. Washington is up there too. And some of the most produced things here are cattle, apples, berries, grass, just grass, wheat, corn, peppermint, and wine grapes. So of course expect all of the related mon here. Somewhere around here you'll find Professor Menzie, the other professor who studies archaeology and the legendaries. Maybe she's at the reservation? Or the ranch? The farmer's market? The fairgrounds? Maybe this fancy vineyard/country club? Oregon and Washington are full of these things. In fact, that vineyard is built on a field that for some reason is locked in eternal spring, making the crops here extremely well maintained and profitable. Now, my idea for this quadrant is that it's where the breeder is, as well as a plethora of mini-games. Pokemon contests, helping out the ranch, carnival games, maybe even a sort of Battle Frontier-esque facility or two, all to reference big state fairs and all. Moving through a tunnel, it's a good time to talk about this volcano in the middle. It's a combination of Mount Hood and Mount St. Helens, both volcanoes sort of near the border between Oregon and Washington, so fitting right in the middle of the map. It's the center point of the region that the box legendaries essentially orbit around, and it's topped with a hot spring. Mount St. Helens' famous eruption in the late 80s led to the development of several hot springs, and actually, I like the idea of this mountaintop being different based on the version of the game being used, Blazing Bloom or Frigid Fall, as it would be based on which box legendary is more powerful. Monadza? It's a hot spring. Arctoyield? It's an ice cap. So either way, there's still watery lake on top. Now, out the other side of the tunnel, we reach the big logging area. Logging is huge in the Pacific Northwest. Idaho, Washington, and Oregon are the first, second, and ninth best states for the logging industry in terms of the sheer amount of wood produced. And don't worry, there are plenty of sustainable logging practices here. Though they've got nothing on the Cascade region, the Kaskadian Conkeldurr line were bred not just to help the loggers, but also to have green thumbs and give newly planted trees a great head start. Leaving the loggers' camp, we reach the third wild area. Did you know that Washington is also known as the land of 1,000 lakes? Yeah, there's over 1,000 lakes here. Swamps too. And further up is a mountain based on Mount Rainier, which at one point was constantly being rained on, hence the name. But at some point, the area around it became locked in eternal winter, covering the entire mountain in a sheet of ice. Oh, and also we took some inspiration from the mountains in the Garibaldi Provincial Park in British Columbia. I mean, look at this. It's beautiful. Being Everwinter, there are plenty of ice types to be found here, including an ice type lake monster, Kaskadian Lapras, based on the Idaho Paddler, or Charlie. Basically, it's the Loch Ness Monster of the Pacific Northwest. It's dragon ice type now, and its shell is a glacier. It's a lot faster than regular Lapras, but its shell is too slippery for even the most skilled riders to stay on when it goes full speed. Well, crossing the I-5 highway, which now has a finished bridge down here so you can backtrack easier, we enter the big city, Port Alki, a city that combines elements from the three major cities of the Pacific Northwest, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, Canada. The name comes from Portland, obviously, and Alki was the name of the land Seattle was built on before it was called Seattle. But today, Alki Beach still remains the westernmost part of Seattle, and Alki is also the unofficial motto of Washington. It's a Chinookan word meaning by and by, which has evolved to mean into the future. Quite fitting of a final destination, especially one that is so technologically advanced compared to the rest of the region. You enter in the south, a much older part of the city. Brick buildings, small businesses, and apartments mostly. Sewers, alleyways, and parks are some of the places you can catch wild Pokemon, like Kunsu, and Kaskadian Raticate, Jynx, and Ecroach. And like with Lapras, let's make this video the video where we go into Kaskadian Jynx. Did you know that Portland has the highest strip club to population ratio? Yeah, even more than Las Vegas. So of course also expect Lopunnies found here, but you can't exactly have a literal pole dancing stripper Pokemon though, right? So how about the next best thing? A fighting psychic type Bojutsu fighter. She uses her staff that is manifested out of psychic energy and fighting spirit to freely spin herself around, attacking all opponents at once. There's definitely a signature move there. Something like Sultry Spin. It hits all opponents and has a chance to cause infatuation. Yeah. Back to the city, this neon Welcome to Port Alki sign is of course a reference to the iconic Welcome to Portland sign, and on the other side there are loads of ports. I mean, they're called Portland and Seattle for a reason. Major import and export hubs. Vancouver too. And this is also why Port Alki has loads of canals built into it. All three of these cities are surprisingly inland for being so big on ocean commerce. Ships have to go through bays and rivers to reach the actual ports, and there are plenty of riverways in the cities as well. Also, one thing that strikes me as awesome about Seattle is their major roadway system. They've got like 3 tiers of roads throughout all of downtown. Ground level, a bunch of bridges hung above ground, and also dug down into canals. The city is like 3 stories. There's loads of bridges that go over the highways, but those bridges are just at ground level flat, because the highways are down in a canal. It's way cool, and I decided to reflect that with some actual canals here. And we can also give Port Alki some boat-based travel inside the city, sort of like Venice. But anyway, right here is another gym. Kind of old and run down. It's an arcade and fun center too. It keeps a lot of the otherwise delinquents busy. And going through the rest of the city, we see plenty of big buildings. Mainly generic corporate headquarters and offices, but some of these are important, like a Pokemon University, based on Portland University. Up here we have a building inspired by Nintendo of America's headquarters, where I'm sure the iconic in-game game developers would be. This one is based on Microsoft headquarters, where we'll see a return of Bill for sure, the computer guy that we met in Kanto. And here we see a mysterious-looking building. And this, of course, is based on Amazon HQ and the Amazon spheres they have out front. This, of course, being the headquarters of amaze-all in Cascade. If you didn't make that connection yet, amaze-all is Amazon get it. But it's not just Amazon. Really, it's if Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google were all one company. Scary, right? These Amazon spheres are functionally a sort of garden greenhouse park. And in the case of amaze-all, they are using it as a weather research lab of their own, documenting the effects of seasonal changes on crops and other such plants. They needed a large enough space that's isolated from the monthly seasonal changes each part of the region gets. So a high-tech greenhouse was basically required. No one really knows exactly why they are looking into such things though, but it's pretty obvious profit is involved. Well, right next to that is the Neo 8th Pokemon Gym. I say Neo because this is the current 8th Pokemon Gym, but it's being shut down in favor of this new, more advanced gym right next to amaze-all HQ. You'll still find the 8th gym leader at the old gym, but he says he's not allowed to battle there anymore, and reluctantly goes to the new one to battle you.
It just feels so corporate, man.
Speaking of corporate, amaze-all tech is everywhere in this city. They have eyes and ears all over the place, delivery drones constantly flying through the air. They've essentially taken over the city.
Bringing convenience and safety to everyone. Have an amazing life.
Then, of course, there is the most iconic part of any of these cities' cityscapes. Seattle's Space Needle. In Port Alki, its size is even more exaggerated, as here it's got the whole Pokemon League battle arena up on top. And the whole thing, of course, was built by amaze-all. There were plenty of questions as to why it was shaped this way, but amaze-all wasn't really able to give an answer other than, these aesthetics just happen to be Tom Bezel's favorite. Perhaps there's a mystery to solve there. Well, let's zoom out. Looking at the whole thing, there are definitely some changes I would make if this were ever to become a game or a mini-series of sorts. Firstly, I'd make the wild areas more populated with interesting things, especially the desert one. I'd probably turn this state fair area with a few buildings into more of a fleshed-out actual city, rather than just some retirement homes and houses just out in the wilderness. But you know, the Pacific Northwest is filled with nothing towns. Cities only 15 miles apart from each other and each one has a population of like 10. That's what this whole area was trying to get across. But yeah, I'd for sure find a few more landmarks and city things for the eastern quadrants. They're kind of comparatively barren, but that is kind of also how eastern Oregon and Washington are. But what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What are some other iconic Oregon and Washington things I missed? Let me know down below, and please remember to check out our next video. It's extra special. And until next time, never stop using your noggin.